Hey, this is Candia Raquel, founder of Centro de Poder, and you're at the Sensual Sessions podcast, the place to be to sense your fire, to share the flame. If you haven't subscribed already, go to www.centrodepoder.com and get yourself signed up to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox. And today we have a very special guest. This is Leah Gastler. Welcome, Leah. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
And Leah,
And I go ahead.
I was.
I love I love your line about sorry, there's like a delay in our Zoom
It's
in
okay.
our connection, but I just love what you say about like feeling your fire and like sharing the flame. Or what was it that you
Yeah, yeah,
say at
yeah.
the beginning?
Exactly. Sense
It's
your
like
fire to share the flame.
it's so perfect.
Yeah, isn't that what this is all about? Like we all want to share, but
Yeah,
we are so often trying to share from an empty vessel. And I feel
exactly.
that, I mean, we the overworkers, workaholics, overachievers, and I mean, just everyone here, but there are other ways that are even more effective and more pleasurable. And I am very curious to see what you will tell us about. So I want to formally introduce you because you have an amazing background. I mean, you have degrees from Bard College, from the with capital letters, Juilliard School, Rice University, and you pursued a career in classical music and viola performance, and then you discovered
Yeah.
your own personal expression through personal development, spirituality, and energetics. That sounds like an explosive winning combination for pleasure. So tell us, what draw you to classical music and viola, which is so refined, and how did you enter to such renowned schools? And then what
Yeah.
happened, like from the conservatorium and classical
Yeah.
music to sex? I mean, like
I
perhaps,
mean, what better transition classical music to sex?
yeah, like for me, it makes perfect sense to to play the
Yeah.
fibers of an instrument. Like, why not play the fibers of the body and make the music of love?
Yes. So
So
this is so like I love reflecting on this journey because honestly it was a very like classical music has its we have like a very contentious relationship. We had a very contentious relationship.
contentious, that
And so when I
passionate.
reflect on that, sorry?
The contentious, it's like not so good, but is for sure passionate. I mean, when you get into
Yeah, yeah.
relation that is contentious, it's like you're invested there.
Yes. Yeah, and I was very invested, and like for me, like classical music was something that I started really young, like I started when I was 6. And and so and I kept playing, I kept playing because I was talented. I was good at it. Like people told me all of the time how good I was at it. And when you're a kid and like I was a very like I wanted to be liked like kids do. They want the approval. They want people to be happy with what they're doing. And like when I was growing up playing classical music, I didn't really have this sense of like my own like who I was within classical music. I did it a lot because it was, what I did and it became this like part of my identity. And so the wild thing about it was that like even though I was very invested and I worked very hard at it, I lost that fire that like from your line, like feeling the fire to share it. I
Yes.
lost that like completely because I really wasn't connected to myself in classical music. I was like very much connected to how this was for other people,
Yeah.
wanting to share it, like wanting it to be something for other people and wanting to be like make an impact and be of service and make other people happy with it. But I like was so disconnected from what I was expressing from me. And which is why like I eventually had to go through this path of discovering who I was, and that led me outside of classical music, you know.
Wow.
Um so yeah, it's like a challenge. It was the challenge of putting myself into a place that's meant to be so expressive and finding that I didn't know what there was to express because I had lost touch with who I was within it.
Bam. And it's it's tremendous, the story. And also, even though I am not a classical viola player, well, I am a dancer, but I feel that a lot of
Yeah.
women, we can relate to your story because in a way, societally, we've been educated to be the caregivers, and it's also like a slogan of merit that happiness will come through relations and through service. So you are gonna be happy when the other person is happy and you give your all, and that's applauded. And if you excel at that, I mean, like you are a 6 year old genius kid viola player, like, I mean, that was a way to find a place, a belonging, and also like apparently a symbol of love. And when you are very good at what you're
Yes.
doing, I mean, like super. You have my biggest admiration and applause for having the courage of stepping away from something that you were such a genius at, but didn't fulfill you. I mean,
Yes.
that
Yeah, it
takes
was hard.
that takes a lot, but that's like that speaks about honesty and sincerity, especially like from you to your once audience. And I feel that we all suffer from that. Oh, and we believe that
Yes.
as we are very good at what we're doing, that must mean that we are enjoying it. But
Exactly.
uh
Yeah. Yeah.
so that leading to sex, it's like, bam, it's key because what if everyone likes you, but you don't like yourself, or everyone enjoys, or your your beloved or beloveds, I don't know, whatever setting you are in, but you are loved for a performance, and it's challenging
Exactly.
to give away the performance and there to be accepted or rejected, but for who you are. And that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's risking the pain of rejection. Like, okay, i I am not performing anymore, this is me,
Hmm.
take it or leave it,
Yes.
love
And
me or leave me or let me be lonely, said Nina Simone. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and like
And a
how
lot
did
of
you
like
survive?
where this,
Sorry.
how did I survive?
How did you survive, like giving away your identity, giving away like, I'm I don't know, maybe you're a trust fund baby and you have money for insured, but if not, like that was like your sustenance, music, maybe grants, you were like, you
Yes.
were in the top best schools from the galaxy. So like that moment of recognition, and then like, yeah, like how did you survive? Like that
Yeah. It
honest.
was a process. It was a process to it was a process to move out, to move away from it. And there was a period of time where like I decided that I needed to explore other things just because I wanted to experience other career paths. And so I did that. I decided that I wanted to be a high school English teacher. I taught high school English for 3 years. And that was like a really nice transition for me out of the world of classical music, which is very much like felt like a bubble. Like it's very specific, a specific
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, world. It's its own little world. And moving into teaching in public school, I was in Houston, Texas. It just completely opened my eyes and mind to people, humanity, what is going on in the world outside of this bubble of classical music that I was in for a really long time. And it just helped me open up and explore. It wasn't ultimately what I wanted to continue doing as a career path. But once I got into that, it just opened my eyes to what mattered to me. And that was the big exploration for several years for me was like, what am I feeling called to do? What am I like following this feeling of what am I curious about that I want to explore? And and then like another pivotal moment for me was having a child. Like when I had my daughter, I just dove so far into personal development because I really wanted to understand how to create my most fulfilling life. And it was like I had done all of these things to try and check off boxes and marks that seemed like the right thing to do or seemed like it was on my path to do, and I did really well. Like I went to the top schools, I got a lot of degrees, and I was not feeling confident, fulfilled, self-expressed, any of those things. And so when I had my daughter, I was like, I'm bringing another being into the world, and I don't know how. I have not created a life that I feel fulfilled by. And so that's why I like went so far into just like self-discovery, really, and how to create a life that really fulfilled me. So that took a lot of rewiring from the place of service, because service was always very important to me, but it
Yes,
was like service that was also selfless.
yes,
And I
yes,
needed to like reclaim this shadow side of like being selfish so
yes,
that I could figure out, because
yes,
I never wanted to be selfish. That was like the worst thing I could possibly be, selfish. But I realized that I had no idea who self was. And so I had to like reclaim a little bit of selfish so
yes,
that I could figure out like what I wanted for my life.
yes. And at the same time, it's an act of radical responsibility and being an adult. Like, yeah, we are educated, especially as women, to be selfless and to be of service and to be nurturing. And I I'm fascinating how you reclaim yourself back, like the
Yeah.
authority on what are you doing, why are you doing it in the moment that you became a mother. So that's where true service and even selflessness should come from this ownership of you instead of the disease to please everyone that can be like
Yeah.
so absorbing, because when everyone is applauding you and giving you titles and grants and lots of love and praise and standing ovations, like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to not forget oneself. And then I love like the how in reclaiming your essence. You brought up, or to my impression, you brought up your true artistic expression, because that's what I see in your feed and the work that you're doing, helping
Yeah.
women, men in committed relationships to create sex and transcendental intimacy through energetic somatic work. But it's not at all this other discourse of complying to a cookie cutter template of intimacy and even sex. But you, in my impression,
Yeah.
you're bringing forth the true artistry, and that is fascinating. Tell us, how did you got into coaching on intimacy and sexuality? Because it's, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
still a little bit of a taboo topic, and at the same time it's like, in our society we have so many double standards about intimacy. I mean, there are like a lot, like, we are sold BMWs with a butt on it, and like everything is sexualized, and even sex is sexualized, to the point that there's everything going on in those footages that you see in triple X sites, that sometimes I look just for
Mhm.
biomechanical research. And the, like, the essence of of what happens there in intimacy is not there. So how did
Right.
you like became interested on sexuality, intimacy, and working, helping couples to have better intimacy and sex?
Sure. Yeah. So the path towards sex and intimacy for me was an extension of this seeking self-expression and really trying to find the bottom, the biggest source of like where I could not express myself, like where I really could not just be completely authentically open. And like as I was going down this exploration, because when I first started coaching, I was coaching classical musicians on confident performance, which is sex and intimacy. To be
Yes,
honest,
yes,
it's
yes,
like
yes,
we
yes,
like it's bearing your soul.
yes,
Yeah, it's bearing your soul through expression,
yes, yes, yes,
and sharing that. Yeah, like sharing the vulnerability, the truth of who you really are. And that was how I made the transition to coaching. And then like of course this shifted a lot because after first of all, like first of all, I went through a shift where I didn't want to continue playing, practicing, being in the classical music world, and I was going deeper into this like my own self-discovery, which kept on going deeper to the point where I discovered that the place where I was still not able to be fully self-expressed was in sex and intimacy. That was like at the bottom of it all, like at the bottom of everything was this like resistance right there with sex and intimacy to like be vulnerable and open and share myself fully, really, you know, on a human and soul level with other humans. And that like that for me that for me, I there was this like painful element of relationships for me where there was this lack of connection at a certain level. It was this like sex was just a physical thing to do, and back when I was very great at people pleasing, it was a people pleasing thing to do. It was like I know how to do it so that you'll like it. But I'm not really enjoying it. I'm not really in it. I'm not really sharing myself. I'm not really fulfilled by it. um I'm not really feeling like this transcendental extension of my being, like this connection with another soul. Like it was just, it got to the point where it was like disappointing, like I wish there was more to it. Um, and so like that in my self discovery and my journey towards being fully self expressed was the bottom, like the foundation where I got to finally was just like unlocking this for myself, which took a lot. It took a lot. And I didn't have a sex and intimacy coach that I was working with. It was just me discovering, like doing my mirror work and my shadow work and my inner child healing. Um,
Bam! You,
and that's how I got there. Yeah.
yeah, hitting rock bottom. It's like the rock bottom that
Yeah.
many of us like know it's there if we just open the eyes and we don't want. Until we
Exactly.
know there's a sex and intimacy coach out there, and here you are.
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Confidence, and not only for an artist on stage, is about sex and intimacy. Confidence itself, I feel it's exudated, steams from the pores of how you relate to yourself intimately. Because I can
Yeah.
testify that I've been drawn to horrible men that are very confident. And it's like, if this guy is so horrible and so confident, I mean, he knows himself, he has something. And also a very handsome guy, so very confident and etc. But that is the key. And being a performing artist that rehearse a lot, but at the moment of the life experience, there's absolutely nothing to hold on to but yourself, if any. And more
Exactly.
than holding to yourself or grabbing yourself,
Exactly.
it's like the only thing that will keep you there standing and not like having your knees bent from nervousness and the monster of the thousand heads that is the public, the audience in the theater looking at you, is like this confidence
Yeah.
that sustains you. And at the same time, confidence is the other face of vulnerability. And this
Yeah.
this softness, in a way, at least for me, is the ultimate strength. Like being soft and open and vulnerable is the ultimate strength. And it
Yeah.
comes from deep within, from your life force, from your creative force, that is sexual energy. And well, it's said that it can be, this energy, life force, can be aroused or non-aroused. But that's what I try to teach to people, that doesn't matter if you are in bed or like at work, it's the same energy that will sustain you. But when you are having sex,
Yes.
is this energy like in its full fire of expression. And yeah, like
Yeah.
the bed is is a divine piece of furniture that doesn't let you lie or hide. I mean, you can try, but
Yeah.
like you can, there's no place to hide in the bed. It's like in the stage.
Right.
And it's not about having wearing clothes on or being naked. It's about bearing the soul that is, I mean, it's scary. It's scary, and but it's
Yeah.
worthwhile, because like if you find yourself naked, you will find yourself. That's you. So why not
Yeah. Right.
embracing yourself?
Right.
And
Exactly. And that's why, like, I
yeah,
was so
and owning yourself,
Yeah.
and then you will have yourself to share with another and with the world. And until then, you will be truly making a service, which is what artists do, I believe. So yeah, yeah. Tell us what is the main challenge that you see, maybe in your own story or with your coaching clients, in regards to sexuality and intimacy. What's the first, like, brick wall we all
Yeah.
stumble
I think,
on?
yeah. Honestly, the first brick wall is like finding actual value, like recognizing with our intellectual minds that we are feeling beings. Like
Yes,
especially for me coming from such an intellectual world where like we exist up here in our minds, rationalizing everything, thinking we can figure out our lives by this, that, and the other thing, like thinking that we can relate to the world by logicking it out. And we become so disconnected from our sensory experience of life. And we become so disconnected from our energy, like what even our energy is, what it's telling us, like how we feel in our lives. Like we walk around feeling pretty crappy a lot of the times,
yes,
doing things we don't really want to do for
yes,
long periods of time,
yes,
and even in sex, like
yes,
we do it without really feeling it because we're stuck in our heads thinking about what the other person wants or whether they're liking it or what, how to please.
yes,
And this like so like the number one brick wall is recognizing the value of feeling sensory experience, like experiencing your life through sensation.
yes, definitely.
And yeah, and like and reconnecting to that, and finding that like also, pleasure, we're so programmed against pleasure. It's like there's a whole bunch of old weird programming, like it's sinful to experience
Yes,
pleasure. And if we don't give ourselves permission to experience pleasure, then we have no access to create a life that we really love because we're resisting being pleased by it.
yes, yes,
It's like
exactly.
it's the most thing.
Yeah, yeah, like it's a nonsense, like pursue, like being entitled to the pursuit of happiness, as some place very important in the US says. But like you're entitled to the pursuit of happiness, but like that's only the pursuit and like the goal. but
Right.
but when you finally achieve it, it you're not entitled to the ownership of happiness and that pleasure, then you go
Exactly.
finding the next one and the next one without never owning it and experiencing
Exactly.
it. And that's the mind shift that it's very necessary in our society, of understanding
Yes.
pleasure and happiness as the means, not as the end. And this is
Yes.
an awareness
Exactly.
of the process. And what happens when you take care of the process,
Yes.
the outcome is splendorous and glorious. So I mean, the way of pleasure, it's even
Right.
more productive, more efficient, more effective, like more earth loving, because
It is.
that's nature's way. I mean, you don't see the tree suffering and like forcing flowers out. Like the trees bloom.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's so important
And there's this
that
whole
we work overcoming this brick wall that you point out so clearly, that overthinking has become our heroine. We become addicted to our discursive thinking, and we have to come back to our senses and realize that we are sentient beings, we are feeling beings, and that's the baseline. Not only for great sex, but for everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this other factor of that, which is that like we are in this constant like you said, pursuit. And especially for women, we have this resistance to receiving, to
Oof,
like allowing these things to just
oof.
to for our
Yes,
bodies to receive what we already have, even, like even the pleasure of what we already have. We don't often experience it again because we are so disconnected from our bodies. And we're constantly thinking our way out into the future, like we're in the process of acquiring something else.
yes, we're
And
thinking.
so, and this like comes up so much.
Yes,
Sorry,
we
go ahead.
no. What you said is like, wow. Yes, we think our way out of pleasure by planning the future,
Yeah.
and that's because we are very compliant with our education in that pleasure is sinful, heaven is for the poor. If you have to sweat and hard earn the bread you eat, I don't know, all that stuff that is like very
Yeah.
well
All
scripted
of that.
in all of that in our minds. But like, wow, it shows up especially in feminine pleasure and in us women,
Yeah.
that we are so challenged to receive what we already, even what we've already gotten, and even what we have already earned with our hard effort, like,
Yes.
and then it's like embedded the it's never enough, but at the same time,
Right.
like, you don't deserve it because you're not good enough, but when you finally deserve it, it's like the vanity of no, 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 I am not gonna enjoy it because it's not enough for me, and I'm not gonna be satisfied until I accomplished more, and that's all
Yeah,
lies, and it's wrong, and we are here to change it.
exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, yes, yes.
And
Receiving pleasure, it's so important.
yes, it's very hard for that's like that's probably like number two brick wall is that receiving pleasure.
Number two, brick wall, receiving pleasure.
Yes.
And yeah, and another thing that maybe a brick wall is like how to deal with the uncertainty and unexpectedness of the now, of the present
Yes.
moment. Because even, I mean, being in front of a theater playing music,
Mhm.
like even if it's classical music, you have rehearsed, well, maybe you play jazz or anything, but even in jazz, like even in improvisation, there's like a certain script. But like in sex, like
Mhm. Yeah.
it's so easy to default on the winning formula and pleasing the other person.
Yes.
Like you get in your suit of pleaser, and then
Yes.
you're protected from the mystery of what can and unfolds now, that is the magic of intimacy and sex. So
Exactly.
like,
And
how not to
that's
freak out with,
that's like where
yeah, that's where.
yeah, that's like that's a lot of where like where when I work with clients, there's that whole, when you're with somebody for a period of time, it becomes this routine, especially when you're really not connected to yourself. You're really like, the winning formula, like you said. It's like we have this goal in mind. I want to orgasm. I want him to come. Like I know how to make it happen. We go through these routines, and it becomes very like an activity, like it just a means to an end,
uh, an activity.
and it loses a lot of the magic of the discovery, the sensual discovery. and it loses the intimacy, it loses the connection, it loses the expression of love and the newness and the exploration that it really can be and gets to be, and the excitement, it loses all of that.
And the
So
excitement.
like, and yes, and yeah, and it really is. It always comes back to, and this is why I feel that it's so empowering to me that it always comes back to us. It's never like
Yes.
we need someone else to change. We need him or her to do something differently. It's really, we get to come back to us and experiencing sex and intimacy like an exploration from within us, not like calculating out there what they want and then trying to generate that, which
Yes.
just puts us back in our head, you
Yes.
know? It just
Definitely.
always gets to come back to this like discovery.
Always come back to this discovery and the exploration within yourself,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're just like checking off the check boxes of the list of the sexual to-dos to comply
Yeah.
with your self-image of a good lover, or wanting to keep the guy there with you or whatever. And that's
Yeah.
very hypocrite, to say the least. I mean, well,
Yeah. It
to say what it is, it's plain sad, because
yeah.
it's exposing the deepest of you, like your sexuality, to comply with something that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, like for me, what this activating the sexual energy and being in this present sensory exploration, it's like a whole, once you unlock that during for sex, it unlocks it everywhere in your life, because
Yes.
if you are going through sex like it's this routine thing, like you're bored by it, you're checking off the boxes, and I feel like this happens for anybody that's in a long-term relationship. If they're just dealing with life, like stress of life, all the normal stuff, it's so easy for sex to just fall into that category. Like you eat lunch so mindlessly, you have sex so mindlessly. Of course you're not going to be like super present when you're practicing being mindless everywhere else in life and just trying to get through the day, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
so once you go ahead,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Like our life, and our existence and the body, it's one, it's a whole. So if you're collapsed all day in front of the computer, and then you drive your car sitting collapsed, and then you go and collapse in the sofa in front of Netflix, how you think you're gonna be in the bed if not
Mhm.
collapsed? Like, where, like,
Exactly.
where are you gonna take like the it I mean,
Yeah,
with there can be like, the excitement of something new, or like you suddenly saw your beloved as the first time, and maybe that ignites the rest. But it's very important to have like a global approach of sensitivity, which is what I try to
mhm,
teach with sensuality. I mean, sensuality understood broadly as sensing pleasure through the senses and expressing through movement in a way that it's free from inhibition. So you have this base of being in your flesh 24/7, and then like you are already in that voluptuous state when you face your beloved and
exactly,
go into sex. Like you are already in the zone, and you just
exactly,
like have a great fuck. But
exactly,
otherwise it's like, I mean,
exactly. That's exactly,
and that's why people use drugs, blood
yeah,
pressure, alcohol, go cheating, etc., to find a supplement, an external
Yeah,
source of something that is not happening there, that is the free flow of life energy. And interestingly enough, like
exactly.
this power potency, it's not out there. You already have it, you already know it, and you know it, you have it in you. But the thing is, like, what you point out so
Exactly.
clearly of taking ownership of your pleasure, like knowing how to own what you already have. And that is
Yeah.
like a supreme act. Well, shouldn't be a supreme act, but it is an act of maturity, of saying like, I am
Yeah.
an adult and this is my life and it's my decision and my responsibility. Especially here, finally,
Yeah.
behind closed doors, with the lights off, with the person that you love, that it can be like to start with
Mhm.
yourself, but it's
Yes.
challenging at the same time. We need to change
Yes.
our mindset.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yeah, and what you said is exactly perfect. Like the spark of sexual energy that is that like life force energy. Once you get to know it for yourself, like we're all like most of us around here like just when you're an adult, like we kind of cut ourselves off from it, especially, you know, if you get in a marriage, you have kids, you know, you cut that the sexual energy really gets the damper put on it. And like there's so much about being, you know, married and a mom that puts and having the jobs that most people have, you know, that aren't your passion, you know, it puts the damper on the sexual energy for so many of us. And so we walk around disconnected from the sexual energy, forgetting that it's there and that we can access it. And it doesn't, it makes our whole life light up. It makes our whole pleasure of everything light up. It makes we have more fun, we enjoy our life more, like things are easier when you actually activate the flow of sexual energy. It makes you feel more
exactly.
youthful. Like
Yes,
that's
yes,
how
yes,
you experience it. It's like you feel youthful. And like, I don't know, it
yes,
changed
yes,
my life when I started exploring it and activating it. And just like you said, it's like you when you think about the word turned on, you know, it's like you
yes.
have
It's
the
exactly that.
spark already lit within you.
Aha, yes. Turn on. And that's the
So
key.
you're
Like,
walking around like
yes,
experiencing turned on.
yeah, and sparkling the turn on ness from everyone. And you said that sexual energy is the fountain of eternal youth. And you can see Mick Jagger having kids at 70 years old. I mean, Mick Jagger
Yeah.
never surrendered his ownership on his core power. And we saw these many Sophia Loren. You see Sophia Loren, I mean,
Yeah.
she how old is she? She has all the years of the universe already. She's like 90. And you see her with her cleavages and her boobs, and I mean, she is
Mhm.
jaw dropping. She came to Mexico like 10
Yeah.
years ago to the opening of a museum. And I mean, you saw her two
Mhm.
blocks away and she made your panties fall just because of her brimming life force. And yeah, I mean, I swear it. And it's not that she's Italian, that's what she no, she's Sofia Loren, but she never relinquished her right to her own pleasure. And we
Yeah.
all have that same energy. And I mean, how come like the Rolling Stones at those ages are having worldwide tours as busy as when they were like 18? Because that's the way it's meant
Yeah.
to be, and that's for all of us. If we don't dampen this
Right.
this spring of of life, of energy, of youthfulness, of
Yeah.
of vitality. And perhaps
Right.
another brick wall of the collection of brick walls that we hit our head against is being afraid of our power and our pleasure. Because, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so would you share with us an exercise, visualization, a little something to experience um, being more, how can we be more expressive in our sexual pleasure? Like, how can we like not be afraid of expressing
Mm.
this life force that is sexual
Yeah,
energy, and it's tremendously pleasurable. Otherwise, we
yeah,
wouldn't be here if our
yeah,
parents didn't know, and grandparents, and you know how it goes. Yeah.
yes. Okay, so well, one like I think one of the most basic ways to re-access that sensory experience is something that's like super accessible, which is scanning your senses. And this is something that I'll do if I'm like finding I'm like really stuck in my head, you know? Like I would go for walks, and as I'm walking, I would literally scan my senses, you know, like what bring the consciousness, what am I seeing right now? Like what, you know, noticing what you're seeing right now, noticing the sounds that you hear right now, the sounds that are in your space, the sounds that are outside your space, those subtle sounds that are in the distance that you're barely conscious of, and then going into your body, your physical sensations, going experiencing whatever the taste, the flavor, the smells around you. This is one way that I find to just bring myself back to presence. I would do this like sometimes I do this while I'm eating. Like I said, if you're eating your lunch mindlessly, you're having sex mindlessly probably.
Of course,
So
of
I will
course.
do this while I'm eating because it's such an indulgent like interactive experience. So just like savoring the textures of food, savoring the flavors, and between your mouth and your hands, you know, especially those two areas where you're really engaged in the activity. So I like doing that during eating because that really like it really slows you down. It gets quite sexual when you're eating food because the sensations are similar. Um, so that's like a sensory one. For
Baseline.
me, like activating the sexual energy, I love feeling into that second chakra area, like that space 2 inches below your belly button. And I I will frequently like put on some kind of music and like move into that space. And if I feel like constriction there or or energy that's like bound there, like I like resistance there, I will just like consciously start moving into that area, like like rubbing the area in circles with my hands, you know, to try and activate that sexual energy that's right there. You know, that's the area where it kind of originates. And I find like any type of like um hip circles movements from that area and I put on music and I will just like move into that space. And another way to like really expand there is if you make audible noise. Like let whatever resistance, if there's resistance or whatever wants to be expressed, like come out in sound. That is very vulnerable. I feel like
Yes.
once you can express the sensation in your body through sound, that's a huge breakthrough for people when they're learning how to open up their vulnerability and intimacy during sex, because we have so much resistance with this letting ourselves speak, letting ourselves vocalize. So my personal practices, I will explore that because if you feel uncomfortable doing it for yourself, you're definitely leaving something out of the like off the table in your sex life if you're,
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
feeling uncomfortable vocalizing for yourself. Yeah. So those are just like two different ways to access. There's like the sensory experience, and then there's that internal energetic experience, which is
Move.
sometimes harder to connect to at first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. That's key. And it leads us to the winning phrase of how you're having your lunch is how you for sure will have sex. Like, because that everything is connected. So why not get ready, prepare your sensitivity every time you have lunch? And you say the key word of delight, delight in it, in the
Yes.
textures, like between your hands and your mouth, and that will slow down and increase your sensitivity. And also, while moving the hips and connecting with the second chakra, sexual energy, allow yourself to express through sounds that just come out. We that's what we do, or we used to do when we were unrepressed and free little beings. I mean, kids make
Mhm.
noises, and when you're really like
Yeah.
taken by the flavor of something delicious that you're eating, it's like you makes it's the natural
Yes.
way. So I am loving these
Yes.
these
That's a
tips
huge, you know,
because
that's a great way to combine those two things, is to make the noises of pleasure, you know, to allow yourself to vocalize pleasure when you experience pleasure in your life, you
yes,
know, like eating your food.
yes,
I
vocalize
mean,
pleasure.
it's like we don't, yeah, yeah, it's really liberating when we allow ourselves to accept, because it requires us again to receive the pleasure and to be present in the pleasure that we are receiving in order to like be like you
Mm.
know, in order to be like, oh yes, you know, like, oh, you just walk outside and the sun is shining and you're like, oh yes, you know.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
yeah,
Reclaiming.
that's a great access to sexual liberation. It's just like claiming that pleasure and vocalizing it.
Naming and vocalizing pleasure, and that will undampen sexual energy that we may be afraid of
Yeah,
our power, potency, splendor, and beauty, but that's exactly what is required to run our lives. I mean, if you have kids, you're married, or maybe you're not married and you don't have kids, but still, we all are like up to our noses with work and productivity, and we want to save the world and make peace and the animals and the water and everything. I mean, we really need that lava river of life force power that we have in our sexuality. It's there for a reason. So yeah, I, the key is to
exactly.
delight in your lunch and vocalize pleasure. Like
Yes.
just commit to delight in your lunch. As that's as simple and as elegant as, because that's it. I mean, it's not something super complicated. It's about also the humbleness
Right.
of no, this is very simple. It's a like a divine recognition.
It really is.
It
It
really is.
really is. It's so much. I mean, it's again that reception, like it's receiving something that is sustaining you. It's receiving something that is contributing to your energy, you know, and it's like taking that moment to experience all of it. And the delight is not just that like it's filling your belly. It's like there's flavor, there's scent, there's texture, there's taste, there's softness and wetness and crunchiness and like everything going on there. And it's a whole sensual experience that's nourishing you on so many levels. And like if you can be so present in that, that's the practice, you know? That you'll be like on fire by the end of lunch, ready to go. Like, like, hey, let's hit the bedroom.
Let's hit the turn on. Yeah. Leah,
Yeah.
I'm loving this. How can we deepen in our exploration of delight, both in our general lives and sexuality? How can we learn more about your work and work with you?
Sure. Yeah. All of my work is on Instagram right now. So you can follow me at my handles at Leah Gastler, just all one word. And I mostly do one-on-one programs right now. And I have a 6-month course, one-on-one course, and it's about being able to access and create amazing sex and intimacy with the person you are in a committed relationship, the person you love. So it's for people who are in like a long-term or committed relationship who feel that kind of disconnection from themselves and that inability to really like have freaking amazing transcendental sex and intimacy with their partner. And like this is so important to me that people we make commitments to each other and we have people we live with for our entire lives and we like still feel this lack of connection or this inability to be fully satisfied by sex and intimacy. And that is like I want people to be able to express their love and their self and their connection to their partner through sex and intimacy. So that's what the course is all about. And of course it's one-on-one, man, because it takes it all back to us. It's always about like unlocking that permission and unlocking that self-expression through us. That's the magic of it, you know?
That's the magic of it.
So
yeah. Go follow Leah Gastler in Instagram and join her one-on-one mentorings and her 6-month course.
Yeah.
Imagine like if we are already all light up and inspired and delighting in every breath with one episode, like must be fantastic to go through the process of your mentoring. Thank you so much, Leah. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a real joy. Thank you so much.
Me too. I really appreciate all that you share with us, and your story is very relatable. And the tools that we have to implement in our lunch and moving the hips, I mean, it seems so simple, and it's so simple, but that's elegance and simplicity. Like, yeah, go for it.
It's an access point. Like it's always that key is like finding an access point for you, you know, to reconnect to you.
Yeah, access points to reconnect with you. So, sensualist, I hope that you delighted so much as I did, and go follow Leah on Gastler at Instagram, and remember to take the time to sense your fire so you can share the flame. And if you haven't already, go to centraldeepwater.com and subscribe to get these episodes delivered weekly on your inbox. Take care. See you next time.